At just 13 years old, Jeff Bridges scrawled 3 words across his bedroom door that would echo through his entire life: "Not an actor." While the rest of the world admired him as one of Hollywood's greats, Jeff was hiding a very different truth. Behind the charm, behind the cameras, he was gripped by panic attacks so overwhelming that he once locked himself in a garage just to avoid rehearsing with his father. Even now, at 75, his pulse still races at 148 beats per minute on set, faster than it ever did during chemotherapy. And only recently, standing before a silent awards crowd, he finally revealed the confession that explained why he nearly walked away from acting more than once, and why stardom never felt like home. Jeffrey Leon Bridges was born December 4, 1949, into a family already steeped in Hollywood. His father, Lloyd Bridges, and his mother, Dorothy, were both actors, and his very first screen role came before he could even talk. At just 6 months old, they carried him onto the set of The Company She Keeps, which premiered in January 1951. The director needed a real baby to cry, so actress Jane Greer gave little Jeff a tiny pinch. He wailed on cue, his credit line, simply "crying baby." Jeff later joked that his first paycheck probably went to baby formula, but the truth was his career had started before he even spoke his first word. By the late 1950s, Lloyd's fame from High Noon made acting seem like the family business, but Lloyd himself didn't fully trust it. Around 1957 or 1958, he sat down with Jeff and his older brother, Beau, and gave them a sobering lesson. He showed them numbers proving most actors made less than $5,000 a year. His rule was simple: no acting jobs unless their grades were above a B+. He even suggested they consider engineering instead. That planted doubt in Jeff's heart, doubt about whether acting could ever really provide a steady life. By 1963, those doubts boiled over. At 13, Jeff marked his bedroom door with "Not an actor." Instead of scripts, he threw himself into painting at the Brentwood Art Center. He started a surf rock band called The Nozzles, and on August 9, 1964, he sold his first canvas for $35. His high school art trophies from 1966 are still in his studio today. Art and music weren't side hobbies. They were his way of proving he could be his own person. Not just Lloyd's son, but the Los Angeles of the 1960s wasn't only about guitars and paintbrushes. At 16, Jeff was already smoking marijuana before class. By the summer of 1967, he was trying LSD in Topanga Canyon jam sessions. Then, on September 3rd of that year, police pulled him over in his Volkswagen Beetle and found a roach inside. Because he was underage, they called Lloyd instead of arresting him. Dorothy immediately signed him up for weekly counseling, while Lloyd personally drove him to rehab meetings that October in Malibu. Jeff later admitted it felt like he was about to miss the off-ramp in life. Lloyd soon tried a new approach. Over breakfast in 1968, he told Jeff something that stuck forever. Acting wasn't a trap, it was freedom. As an actor, you can be a pilot, a painter, a musician, all without leaving your job. That idea changed everything. Soon after, Jeff agreed to a small role on Lloyd's show Sea Hunt, not because he suddenly loved acting, but because he wanted money for a Stratocaster guitar. Lloyd's strategy worked. Acting now looked like possibility, not prison. Still, Jeff didn't give himself fully to Hollywood. On May 12, 1967, at 17, he enlisted in the Coast Guard Reserve. For 8 years, he endured long weekends scrubbing buoys and pulling night shifts. He hated it, but it kept him out of Vietnam. In between, he squeezed in movies. That's how he landed The Last Picture Show in 1971 and Thunderbolt and Lightfoot in 1974, both earning him Oscar nominations while he was still in uniform. Yet even after success, Jeff's doubts about acting lingered. In 1972, fresh off his first nomination, he bought a Malibu beach house and a Venice studio, not to chase more roles, but to paint and play music. His mother, Dorothy, stepped in. She kept a notebook of every audition and reminded him of the opportunities he was risking. Lloyd reminded him that acting could combine all his creative passions. Together, they pulled him back into the fold. Jeff agreed to star in The Iceman Cometh, 1973, a role he'd already turned down. That decision kept him tethered to Hollywood. Then, fate stepped in. While filming Rancho Deluxe in 1975, Jeff noticed a young waitress named Susan Geston. She had 2 black eyes from a recent accident, but Jeff couldn't stop staring. He kept fumbling his lines. She turned him down at first, but later, at a wrap party, they danced. By June 5, 1977, they were married. For Jeff, Susan wasn't just a partner. She was the anchor that gave him roots. His career surged. He starred in the $24 million remake of King Kong in 1976, which earned nearly $90 million worldwide. In 1981, he braved the experimental digital frontier with Tron. The worried look on his face in the film wasn't acting. He was genuinely terrified computers might replace people. Then, in 1984, Starman earned him another Oscar nod, but the transformation left him so unsettled he needed therapy just to find Jeff again. The mid-1980s tested his marriage. Steamy scenes with Glenn Close and Jagged Edge, 1985, nearly pushed Susan over the edge. Meanwhile, the pressures of Hollywood drove him into heavy drinking. He found an outlet in jazz piano while preparing for The Fabulous Baker Boys, 1989, waking at 5 a.m. daily to practice. The movie became a critical triumph, but pulled him even deeper into the business he often wished to escape. Then came The Big Lebowski in 1998. Initially a flop, it slowly became a phenomenon. By 2005, it inspired Dudism, a parody religion with over 600,000 members. Fans begged Jeff to bless their white Russians. At home, his daughters weren't impressed. In 1999, Isabel, Jessica, and Haley handed him a handwritten note titled, "Why It's Weird You're Famous." To them, he wasn't the dude, he was just dad. In 2009, he nearly passed on Crazy Heart, weary of playing broken men. Only when T-Bone Burnett joined did Jeff say yes. The movie cost $7 million, earned $39.5 million, and won him an Oscar. On March 7, 2010, holding the golden statue, he thanked his parents with a cracking voice. Calling acting a groovy profession, for the first time, he seemed at peace with the craft he had resisted his whole life. Still, fear never left him. He turned down True Grit 3 times before finally agreeing. The film earned 10 Oscar nominations and proved that facing fear could lead to brilliance. Then, life struck harder than any movie role. In October 2020, Jeff announced he had follicular non-Hodgkin lymphoma. The tumor in his abdomen measured 9 by 12 inches. After 6 rounds of chemo, it shrank to 2 centimeters by August 2021. But midway through treatment, COVID nearly killed him. He spent 5 weeks in ICU, unable to stand more than 45 seconds at a time. Doctors later said the vaccine he'd received just before treatment may have saved his life. During those nights in the hospital, he asked for 2 shoeboxes of letters written by his mother. Inside, he discovered something shocking. In 1969, his parents' 58-year marriage nearly collapsed. Lloyd had even filed divorce papers before a fragile truce saved them. For Jeff, who had always believed their marriage was perfect, it was eye-opening. It inspired him to open deeper conversations with Susan, his wife of 43 years, about honesty, fear, and gratitude. But recovery came with a heavy price tag, over $3 million in medical bills. To keep his health insurance, Jeff returned to filming The Old Man in 2021, still relying on an oxygen concentrator. Critics later said his performance wasn't acting. It was raw survival. Then came April 29, 2024. At the Chaplin Award Gala in New York, Jeff stood before the audience and confessed, "I never actually wanted to become an actor." He described panic attacks as a teen hiding in garages to avoid rehearsing, and read from an old journal. "Acting feels like wearing someone else's skin, itchy and wrong." For 6 long seconds the room was silent. Then came thunderous applause, and still the fear remains. In March 2025, while filming Tron: Ares, his heart rate spiked to 148, higher than during chemo. He wakes at 4 a.m., terrified he'll forget his craft. "The fear's louder than the tumors ever were," he admitted. Jeff Bridges has lived a life of contradictions. A Hollywood icon who once swore he'd never act. A husband who nearly lost his marriage to the industry's glare. A survivor who faced cancer and COVID at once. And an artist who never stopped chasing freedom. For all the fame, perhaps his greatest triumph is that he kept showing up, not to be famous, but to prove that fear would never have the last word.